Good morning, everyone. This is G, and I'm back with another video. I apologize for the lack of videos this week. I have been very busy and, as a consequence, very tired this week. So there's a lot that I have to eventually catch up on, but I will catch up on it. So I hope everybody is doing well, or if you're not doing well, that you're doing better. So I wanted to touch upon a certain trend that I've been seeing. It's nothing new, but I just wanted to give my thoughts on it. And this trend is what I would like to call the think of the women argument, right? It's kind of an offshoot of the think of society or think of the children argument that is often made when someone is trying to encourage or promote the censorship of something. Now, I've seen, and there's many things recently that have been sort of caught up, I guess you could say, or targeted by this, what I feel to be a bad faith argument, this think of the women argument. But three, I don't want to say things, but I guess three incidents, I don't know, in particular. One, which is the release of Mithra and Pyrrha, or Pyra and Mithra. I don't really follow Xenoblade, but I know that these two characters were recently introduced to the Smash Brothers community, and there was this big hoopla over their outfits, which look perfectly fine to me. I mean, they have characters like Samus and Bayonetta in that game. You know, zero suit Samus and all that. Yet somehow this is offensive. But you have this in the Smash Brothers community. You have the recent controversy over the defeminizing and desexing of Lola Bunny in Space Jam 2, and the recent attempt at canceling Pepe Le Pew, right, on claims of rape culture, that he promotes rape culture, right? So, in my opinion, these are bad faith arguments that don't have any real backup, but also they are these think of the women arguments, right? With Pyrrha and Mithra and Lola Bunny, and I've covered this type of topic several times on my channel in different videos. This idea that the attractive female body, right, especially if it's particularly feminine, right, if she's busty, is somehow a sexual objectification of women, right? And then, of course, with Pepe Le Pew, right, the idea of rape culture, and then that, of course, that it encourages sexual violence, right, against women. So let me try to address these arguments as best I know how. So, a common, I guess, say a common response that I see online, which is echoed by Tim Poole here. I like Tim. Uh, but he wrote here on the 5th, so it was a few days ago, writing, "Are people actually mad they made the cartoon rabbit lady with no boobs? It's a kids movie. Who the F is angry about this? Are 90s kids supposed to be turned on by anthropomorphic cartoon animals?" First of all, Tim, with all due respect to you, I don't think you quite get it, and I'll get into that. And also, um, have you heard of the internet? Have you heard of Rule 34? Nothing is spared from Rule 34, especially cartoon animals. I mean, have you ever heard of Zootopia and Judy Hopps? That's all I gotta say about that. But here's my response to Tim, right? The reason, at least this is the way I see it, the reason people are upset is because changing the design is pointless. Desexing attractive women from 80s, 90s IPs is the new trend, Tim. Also, kids' movie is a bad argument. Disney's Hunchback of Notre Dame was a kids' movie that featured a sexy female lead. Of course, that sexy female lead was Esmeralda. And especially by the mid 90s, Disney had gotten a bit more comfortable with having a not just beautiful, right, but a sexy, right, woman for the lead. First they had Pocahontas, then it was Esmeralda. But here's the thing. Let me try to expound upon this a bit, right? The depiction of the feminine ideal, let's say, right, being beautiful, being attractive, having a fit and oftentimes, yes, busty figure, right? Hyper feminine design, large breast, thick thighs, large rear, hips, all that stuff has been under attack, especially in comics and video games for several years now, right? As I've made mention of plenty of times, plenty of video games such as Mortal Kombat 11 toned down the costumes for their female characters, even in cases where it made no sense, like Melina or Shiva, right? But they also have done this to plenty of children's cartoons that have been rebooted and modernized for the modern day. A few examples that come to mind are She-Ra, the reboot of She-Ra and the Princess of Power, now She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. There was a huge hoopla back, I think, in 2018 when they first showed off the designs for some of the characters, including the main character of She-Ra, and it was decidedly unfeminine. I think it's fair to say that, right? It certainly wasn't the glamazon of the '80s, and it wasn't the Xena-esque tomboy warrior that had been pitched as a design for the 2002 He-Man series had it lasted long enough to introduce She-Ra. Many people found the She-Ra design, uh, the new one for the 2018 to 2020 2021 show, to be basically, many said, she looked like Aang in bad armor, right? And having watched that show, and especially if you've seen the videos I've made about it, I was not happy with that show, and its art was part of the reason why a lot of their designs, right? She-Ra in particular. Another one was Huntara. How in the world does a woman living in the desert develop a powerlifter's body? Someone explained this to me. But anyhow, right? Decidedly unfeminine uh, design. Another one was Thundercats Roar, right? If you remember the original Thundercats, right, you'll remember that Chitara looked like a gymnast, right? She looked like a gymnast with '80s hair, more or less. She even just wore, a simple leotard, as many gymnasts do. When they introduced the character or reintroduced her in Thundercats 4, she had this very short hair, this very masculine appearance, and again, combined with the, in my personal opinion, incredibly ugly art style of Thundercats Roar, she didn't look anything like herself, and she certainly didn't look anything like a woman. And then you have cartoons that just flat out cut out their sort of sex appeal, sex on legs character. For example, when the Powerpuff Girls was rebooted, I think in 2016, they did not bring back Miss Bella, right? Because she was too sexy, and they said that her uh, depiction, right, was now offensive, and they weren't going to bring her back. Same thing more recently, to my knowledge at least, with the Animaniacs reboot. They did not bring back, um, what's her name? Hello Nurse. So, in my opinion, there's this erasure of the attractive female, right? And as I said here, changing the design is pointless. Lola Bunny comes from the 1990s. She's from the original Space Jam film in 1996. Standards were very different then. Just because you now, in my opinion, take faux offense to it and want to claim, oh, it's sexually objectifying. Well, where's your proof? Where's your proof outside of your own personal offense that this depiction of a female character is somehow um, insulting, right? Or objectifying, right? And as I said to Tim, kids' movie is a bad uh, argument, right? Because those kids' movies are also made with adults in mind to a certain degree, and any good kids' movie can also appeal to a grown up, right? It's like what C.S. Lewis said, right? That if you take the term of a grown up and you try to appear grown up for the sake of being grown up, well, then you're really kind of childish, right? A good kids movie appeals both to the actual child and to the inner child inside an adult, right? In my personal opinion. Now, I want to share some other tweets that I've found that really echo the sentiments and the feelings that I have toward this argument of sexy, attractive female character in kids' film equals offensive or bad or harmful in some fashion. So, we have this from the Sentinel, right? So he writes, he has several tweets that I'll be sharing. The reason seeing the change pissed me off so much wasn't because it didn't give me a boner or any other stupid Twitter rejoinder. It was because if I was a woman who grew up with the film, I'd find it personally insulting to completely remove characteristics inherent to the character. I'll continue, but first of all, I completely agree with him. Second, I just want to analyze this image right here. We have 96 Lola, and then the new one here. In my personal opinion, if they wanted to de-emphasize the sex appeal, right, in her physical appearance, then at the very least emphasize the strength, because there's an article here. There's an article from where is it? From TMZ, right? I think it's from TMZ, where the Space Jam director says that he took Lola from sexualized to strong, right? It says here, the director of Space Jam: A New Legacy has reworked Lola Bunny's role for the reboot, claiming he wasn't comfortable with the very sexualized way she came off in the original back in 1996. The man behind the film is Malcolm D. Lee, who's worked on a bunch of other films. He also is Spike Lee's cousin, because of course he is. Right? And it says that now that he's taken over the reins of Space Jam, he wants to make sure Lola Bunny will be a strong role model for young people. And he says, this is 2021. It's important to reflect the authenticity of strong, capable female characters. Right? So, if you want to emphasize that she is indeed a strong female character, Mr. Lee, why not, again, base her form off of actual WNBA players? I know that at least Diana Taurasi is involved in this project. So why not actually say give her very muscular arms if you want to emphasize the fact that she's strong? Basketball players of both genders tend to be very tall and lean, but very muscular. So you could lose the shooting sleeve, especially if Diana Taurasi is involved in this. That woman never wears a shooting sleeve. But you could lose the shooting sleeve, emphasize the musculature of her arms and legs, and make her, uber tall if you want to emphasize the fact that she's strong, right? And de-emphasize her sex appeal. Again, I see nothing wrong with Lola Bunny being a sexy character. In fact, the article I was just reading mentions and explains her introduction scene in the first film, where she disproves, Bugs Bunny, and by extension the audience assumption that just because she's attractive that she doesn't know how to play basketball. Right? It's actually Michael Jordan is the only one who actually in the beginning treats her with respect and realizes, oh, she's got skills. But to continue with the Sentinel's comments, right, he goes on to number 2, appeal of the character, right? It'd be like if they made a Conan the Barbarian movie with a 150-pound skinny fat actor when part of Conan's defining characteristics is his Adonis physique and bulging muscles. And as we all well know, right, especially in the 80s films, he was played by a literal champion bodybuilder in Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? And then when they did the reboot a few years ago, they cast Jason Momoa in the role, right? So they certainly did not deviate as Mr. Sentinel, or rather say the Sentinel. I have no idea what the gender is. I shouldn't assume. But as the Sentinel mentions here, right, they didn't deviate from the norm or the standard as is for Conan, right, which is to have a very muscular, masculine man play the role. And then he brings up point 3. That would be a demasculinization of a character who is inherently masculine. With Lola, Removing her feminine characteristics is a defeminization of a character who is inherently feminine. Exactly. You are losing the very core element of who the character is. Lola Bunny is a girly girl. She's sexy, she's feminine, but she's also very good at playing basketball. And then Sentinel finishes off here saying that's why it's wrong and why anyone who is offended by the change has every right to be outraged over it. The fact that it's being done in a kids' movie is what makes it even worse. Exactly. I don't think I could have said that or written that any better. Especially when I just, as I mentioned, compare how they did not really deviate from the standard when they modernized Conan a few years ago, but they're totally going in the opposite direction with the modern reboot of Space Jam and Lola Bunny, and just again the depiction of women in general when they reboot and modernize these properties that tend to be from the 80s and 90s, and they try to make them for the modern day. Another one that I found that I thought was very good comes from Trash Queen and King, which says, I hate when I see articles of character redesigns and they say the character went from sexy to strong, which is of course referencing the TMZ article. Like, can you be both? Strong and sexy are not two separate things. You can be hot and be a badass. Exactly. These are not two things that have to be an either or situation. And yet, we have people like Mr. Lee in the media, right, who modernize works that are like 20, 30 years old or past 30. Like the original she was from like the mid late 80s, so that's in your mid 30s now, right? And they modernize this and they create this unnecessary division, right? They basically say, look, you have to have a choice, right? Sexy or strong. And I'm like, as this person mentions, it's like you don't have to choose. I grew up in the age where you didn't have to choose. Look at Tomb Raider, right? Lara Croft is sexy and strong. In fact, those two elements kind of feed into each other. She is strong because she is sexy, and she is sexy because she is strong. And yet, again, they think that they're, or rather say, people like Mr. Lee, right? Mr. Malcolm Lee, cousin of Spike Lee, think that they're somehow doing real world women like myself a favor when they tone down and desex and defeminize female characters like Lola Bunny and Pyrrha and Mithra and plenty of other characters in other mediums. And it's like, no, erasing the sex appeal of women, which is basically what you're doing, does not help us at all. You're erasing us. Right now, I'm not saying that every female character in a work needs to, be the hubba hubba sex on legs character, but there is a time and a place for those characters. And if your response to seeing an attractive woman from an older property is, "Oh my God, we must erase this in some way," then I think you have a problem. I'm just saying. Now, another thing I've seen online recently is tweets like this, right? This is from Sideways, who does great videos regarding music and Disney and whatnot, but I really think he's off base here with this tweet, with all due respect to him. I know it's hard to read, so I'll read it. He says, getting ready to watch the deluge of morons coming in to defend the rape skunk. Of course, referring to Pepe Le Pew. And then there's this tweet here, which was part of a larger thread, to be fair, about the French animation industry. But I found these two tweets in particular interesting, right? Also, did you read the thread before whining that I can do what I want, or it's just a drawing, or even you're just jealous? Seriously, people, are you okay? It's kind of sad to see you all worked up because of genuine and professional criticism. And then the next tweet is, I won't answer any of those tweets. They just convince me even more that we need to educate people on how their representation is biased and harmful rather harmful for a lot of people, including kids. Well, here's the thing, Les Intradales, however in the world you say that. Again, they're French. I can't speak French, so or- so if I mispronounced that, I apologize. But my issue with these tweets, the one from Sideways and then these two from this person, is that it shuts down any type of conversation or debate to have about this, right? I'm just waiting for the deluge of people to defend the rape skunk. It's like, first of all, if you're gonna say something like that, tell me of at least one rapist, one person who committed rape or some sort of sexual assault, who actually cited Le Pew as an inspiration and a reason why. The whole thing about Pepe is that he demonstrated the qualities that you don't want to have as a man if you're interested in a woman, right? He came on too strong. Now, I'm not saying that you can't call it out and say, oh my God, this is bad, this is unacceptable behavior. You can, and you should, but that was the whole point, right? He doesn't impress the what's her name, Penelope the cat, right? He doesn't impress her with his overtures, right? Because he comes on too strong, right? We've seen this before, right? There are characters like Johnny Bravo, right, who seldom ever gets the girl because he comes on too strong, right? Or a good one, especially invoking Disney, Beauty and the Beast, right? What does Gaston do? He literally, plans a wedding without even asking Belle, right? He even says, I should go in there and propose to the girl, right? And all this other stuff. And he thinks that, she'll just fawn over him because he's Gaston, right? And he gets very predatory in that scene. And many people in the modern day have called the scene out, saying, oh, it's rapey. I'm like, it's predatory. That's the point. He's a hunter. Belle is the prey. He's trying to get her and basically bully her and force her into marrying him. The film never says that what he does is correct. As we see, it's not correct because he tries it again, even worse later on in the film by taking more Maurice hostage, and she flat out tells him no. She literally says no, never, right? The actions of characters like Johnny Bravo or Pepe Le Pew or Gaston are never treated or promoted in the works they're featured in as positive, as, oh, this is the way a man should behave. No, they're always shown in the negative. You're complaining about something that people already know. This is not the way to get a woman's interest in you. And what really frustrates me about these type of tweets is that, as I said before, it shuts down conversation. How do we talk, right? How do we talk if you won't answer any of the tweets, right? I feel like Tevin Campbell, like, can we talk for a minute? But I don't want to know your name per se, but I'd like to have a conversation. But how do you do that if you say, well, I'm not going to answer tweets, they just convince me more, we need to educate people, right? Okay, I'm all for educating people. I like to learn. But how do we educate people if we cannot bring opposing ideas into a public space and debate them and go, hey, I view it this way, you view it that way, let's have a conversation about it? How do we educate people about how to think or how to analyze information or anything if we don't have this discourse, right? At least on Twitter, and I think it was Eric July who said recently, right, that Twitter isn't real life. But here's the thing, with all due respect to Eric, right, also known as Young Ripper 59, right? While Twitter is not real life, certainly Twitter impacts real life. We see it time and again. Gina Carano got fired. Troy Levitt has resigned from his role in the Hogwarts game, and I'll make a video about that a little later. We see time and again that internet outrage, while it may not be a accurate depiction of real life, right, or greater opinions, right, particularly of Americans, but still, it does have a real impact on people's real life jobs. For example, Pepe Le Pew had a there was a they cut the scene from what I was reading. They cut the scene months ago, but there was going to be a scene of him basically learning about uh, consent. And interestingly enough, let me read about that here. Let me pull up this article, which comes from Deadline. So again, take it with a grain of salt. This is what I found. So it says that Pepe Le Pew won't be showing up in the upcoming theatrical sequel to Space Jam on July 16th, right? So they said that there was originally supposed to be a scene, right, a hybrid live action and animation scene between actress Grise Santo and Pepe Le Pew shot back in June 2019, and it was left on the cutting room floor. Right. It also says that Warner Brothers currently has no plans to have him appear on Looney Tunes or the Bugs Bunny Builders Tiny Toons Looniversary or future projects. Right. So I think to say at least at the moment he's been effectively canceled. Right. But interestingly enough, it says here that the scene was cut 3 months ago, right? Now it says here that Pepe was set to appear in a black and white Casablanca type sequence. He would play a bartender who starts hitting on a woman who is played by Grace Santo, right? He begins to kiss her arm and then she pulls back and she slams Pepe into a chair. She throws her drink on him, slaps him, right? And then LeBron James would step in, to explain what consent is to Pepe Le Pew. Now, I think it's one of those things where I would have to actually see it play out to see whether or not it works for the movie or for the character. But I could see that type of scene, especially with the whole type of character Pepe is, right? He doesn't know how to take no for an answer, kind of like Steve Urkel. But here's what I find interesting about this, right? Let me see here. Where was I? It says here that upon learning that her scene with Pepe was cut, Santo was upset, according to her spokesperson. The actress singer has been a victim of sexual harassment and has spoken out against it, even recording a debut single, Voke Voke, right? Or Vase Vase? I don't know how you say it. I'm sorry. Right, back in February of 2018, with the goal of empowering women to stand up against sexual predators and sexual harassment. It says here that Santo took joy in shooting the Space Jam sequel scene with Pepe because the skunk finally gets his comeuppance. Right, it says here that a spokesperson for Miss Santo told Deadline this was such a big deal for Grace to be in the movie, even though Pepe is a cartoon character. If anyone was going to slap a sexual harasser like him, Grace wished it would be her. Now the scene is cut and she doesn't have the power to influence the world through younger generations who'll be watching Space Jam 2 to let younger girls and younger boys know that Pepe's behavior was unacceptable, right? So here, the actual actress, right? The actual actress is upset, was not happy that her scene was cut because she feels that it's a lost opportunity to send the message of sexual harassment is bad. By what? By doing the same thing that the cartoon and the other cartoons I mentioned have been doing for a long time, showing that, hey, this type of harassment is not going to get the ladies' attention. Right? But instead of actually featuring the scene and leaving it in, right, they decide to cut it, right? For what? What have you done? What have you proven? How do you help, right? Um, Promote consent culture, right, or proper romantic and sexual behavior in men and women, right? How do you, um, I guess, demonstrate What is and is not inappropriate behavior if you're not willing to show and demonstrate and have a character who demonstrates and represents inappropriate behavior so that you can go, bad, bad skunk, which is what they've always been doing. But instead, they just cancel him because apparently that's the easier thing to do instead of to actually demonstrate this is bad. This will not accomplish the goal of impressing the girl that you want, right? But again, as I was saying earlier, how in the world do you have a conversation if the response is, well, I'm not going to respond to those tweets? We need to educate people on why they're biased. But with all due respect to Les Intervales, maybe you're the one who's biased? I will admit, though, there is certainly a harmful element to all this, including kids, including women. But the harmful element, in my opinion, is trying to hide and erase all these type of characters, right? Instead of uh, depicting them and going, yeah, there are attractive, busty women in the world. Be proud of it. Yeah, there are creepy dudes out there. Slap them in the face, right? Instead of showing women taking pride and having agency, instead it's, well, let's put all the sexy girls behind a screen. Let's erase them. Let's take any potentially problematic or negative or scary situation a woman could find herself in and not depict it. So let's not show a woman be strong and assert her agency and go, no, you don't approach me like that. This seems to be what they want to promote, and yeah, I actually do find it quite biased and harmful to people, including kids. So that may be the only part that Leon Trevalles and I agree on, but for very different reasons. Right? Now, of course, with Pepe Le Pew, I was quote tweeting Charles Blow, right, who says that blogs are mad because I said Pepe Le, Le Pew. His name literally implies that he stinks, right? Added to rape culture. And then he says, he grabs a girl, a stranger, without consent. She struggles to get away. He locks the door. Look, again, I'm not trying to say that Pepe's behavior is a good thing. It's not. But that's the whole point. It's not good, and he always suffers a negative consequence for his behavior. That's kind of the point. And as I wrote here, please tell me of a rapist, right, who stated that he or she learned to rape because of Pepe Le Pew cartoons. I don't know of any. At least there is no murderer or rapist or any sort of deranged, sick criminal, right? Like the types who get life in prison or on death row. And I've read and heard many of those type of accounts, disturbing things. But I have yet to come across the account of any that type of criminal who said, you know what, I watched a lot of Pepe Le Pew cartoons when I was a kid, and that's where I learned it from. No, just like with the Chicago representative who wants to ban all types of violence in video games, you don't address the problem of violence by going after what you deem to be violent media. And you don't go after rape or rape culture, right? Which I don't believe in America by and large exists anymore. Just because a crime happens does not mean the culture encourages or supports that. I literally work in a college and we are all about consent culture. We will practically beg you to come into the office and tell us if someone has violated the sexual harassment policy in any way. Right? So I personally would not agree with this assertion that America has a rape culture. Now, do we have a problem with crime? Yes. Is rape part of that problem? Yeah. Naturally, one rape happening is too many rapes, right? But that does not mean that the culture accepts it. In fact, we are so against rape that we will jump and immediately assume anybody accused of rape must have done it, right? Especially if it's a man. And that's equally dangerous because if the person's innocent, then you're ruining an innocent man's life for no reason. And I've seen instances where that has happened too, right? That doesn't help. Neither one helps. Neither extreme helps. What helps is being honest about a very hard, harmful, complex situation, which sadly, in reality, will never completely go away because so long as people have darkness in their hearts, so long as all of us have an evil side, and so long as you have people who grow up in unstable, dangerous situations, who get abused themselves, those tend to be the ones who go out and they commit crimes like murder and rape and whatnot. So you need to address that. We need to address the real world societal issues that lead to these type of things. Not complaining about a cartoon skunk that hasn't been featured in anything, I think, in the past 20 years. At least I haven't seen anything. But again, this is what they do. This is what the SJW types do. They take something which is a non-issue, right? Something that was, uh, let's say, I guess not terribly controversial in the past at the time it was released. They make an issue of it now, and then because they make an issue of it, people like myself who are from that time period have to go, look, it's not an issue. You're making an issue out of a non-issue, and then it becomes an issue, right? Now, moving on, right? Let's remember, people, that censorship is the child of fear, the father of ignorance, and the weapon of tyrants. The more we play into this fear culture, the more we play into this culture of no opinion is right except my own, the more we contribute to a very, 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 very dangerous, volatile cocktail of a situation. This is not good. This is not good at all. Dr. Seuss is being canceled, right? All different types of things are being canceled or changed. And even though it didn't go through, right, there was the attempt to change Mr. Potato Head and take the Mr. away. These are not small issues, right? They should be small issues, but again, it is attacking the idea, in my opinion, of gender, right? So again, censorship is 9 times out of 10 not the answer. The more things become censored, the worse things are going to become. Right? So, first of all, we all know Jessica Rabbit's up on the chopping block because people have been complaining about her and how sexy she is since 1989, since the original Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So eventually, we all know they're going to do a reboot of this film. So, hide your waifus. Hide your waifus. But there's another reason why I bring her image up. It's because of what I view to be a double standard. Because as has been argued with her and many other female characters, right? Her hyper feminine, hyper sexualized appearance is often argued to be what's the word I'm looking for? Right? Harmful to women via sexual objectification. Yet the same people that I see complaining about this highly sexual image don't say a damned word about this highly sexual image. And this is featuring a real live young man. He's a human being. Right? His name is Noah Beck. And yet I haven't heard a single person bring up this article or mention how, hey, underwear modeling, right, is a type of sexual objectification. Now, look, I want to be clear. If he wants to do this, it's his right. I think it's one of those things, like many people, he will look back in 15 or 20 years and go, right? But again, he's a human being. He has the right to choose, and so long as he gave informed consent, I have no issue with him doing this, and I certainly have no issue with this image. But I do find it interesting that when men get sexualized, such as in this, or there was a Michael B. Jordan commercial where he's literally like, I wouldn't quite say a sex doll, right? But the whole point of the commercial is that he's this woman's fantasy come to life, more or less, right? And he serves her dinner, and he's in a bath with her, and it's all this other stuff. It's pure sexual objectification of Michael B. Jordan. And again, so long as he's okay with it, I have no issue with it. But it's